Ever since I was born, Daddy has been the best father you could ever imagine.
Michael Jackson was arguably one of the most iconic musicians of all time. He was the people's favorite entertainer who made history time and time again with each release. Today, he still holds the title of the King of Pop, even years after his death. He is adored as a timeless legend by millions of people worldwide, even those who aren't fans of his music. But to his daughter, Paris, he was just dad without a grand music title attached.
No matter what it was we were interested in, at one point I wanted to be an astronaut. He was like, do it. Do it, educate yourself as much as possible.
She was one of the few people who really knew the Michael Jackson behind the costumes, stage presence, music, and fame. Despite the lavish life that people thought Michael Jackson lived, he made sure Paris maintained an authentic personality, which she often recounts in interviews about her childhood. She has also even confirmed something we all knew all along, but had no real backing. What did she confirm? Keep watching to find out. Michael Jackson's passing and influence on Paris. On the tragic day of June 25, 2009, the entire world grieved the loss of Michael Jackson, the beloved artist who had won the hearts of fans globally. He breathed his last in his home in Los Angeles, where he gave in to cardiac arrest caused by a lethal combination of drugs administered by his personal doctor. At the time of Michael's untimely death, his daughter Paris Jackson was only 11 years old. In an extensive revelation to Rolling Stone in 2017, Paris shared a personal detail that shows the beautiful bond she shared with her late father, including something we always knew but weren't sure of. To begin with, she disclosed that at the moment of his passing, Michael was wearing a rope and jade bracelet from Africa. In a touching tribute, Paris expressed her connection to this bracelet, constantly wearing it and adamantly refusing to part with it. She even said it still smells like him. To Paris, the simple bracelet has a very sentimental value, even in his absence. This next fact will touch your heart. Paris has openly shared that her connection with her father goes beyond the physical world, with him even appearing in her dreams. She feels his presence with her all the time. Michael Jackson's influence on Paris isn't just personal. It extends into her creative pursuits. In an interview about her debut album, Wilted, Paris acknowledged her father's lasting impact on her artistic expression. She believes he will always influence everything she does, consciously or subconsciously. Surrounded by her father's creativity while growing up, Paris was in an environment that encouraged musical expression. Paris Jackson often talks about how her dad, Michael Jackson, influenced her music. She says, "It's not just about trying hard. It's also about how his ideas sneak into her songs without her even realizing." Being with Michael and his creative mind taught her a lot. She says his lessons and ideas are like treasures in her first album. Paris says her dad, Michael Jackson, was really down to earth, despite being extremely wealthy and famous. Even though he was one of the most respected musicians ever, he ensured his kids stayed humble. Paris says her dad taught her that just because they had lots of money and fame, it didn't mean they were better than anyone else. Paris thinks she picked up a lot from being around his creativity all the time. That's not all. In an interview with Naomi Campbell, Paris talked about her childhood. She said her dad made sure she didn't just see fancy things, but also learned important stuff. He took her to different places, even unimpressive ones, so that she could understand life better. Paris remembers her dad didn't hide the truth, even about tough things like history. Instead of sugarcoating, he told her the real facts, like how Columbus hurt the natives. This shows he wanted his kids to really know what the world is like. Paris mentioned her upbringing in an interview with Naomi Campbell. She said her dad, Michael, didn't just show her fancy places. He wanted her to be educated and cultured, so he took her to different places, including poor countries. Michael believed in being honest about everything, even the hard truths of history. For example, he didn't tell Paris that Columbus was a hero, but explained the reality of his actions. In another interview, Paris spoke about how her dad raised her. She said Michael didn't hide the truth from her. He wanted her to understand the world as it is, not just the glamorous parts. In the Jackson family, education was very important. Paris. Jackson talks a lot about how her dad made education a big deal. She once told a story in an interview about how her dad was serious about her doing well in school and also having fun. She mentioned how he encouraged her to read by telling her if she wanted 5 toys from Toys R Us, she would have to read 5 books, and he would ask her about them. This shows how much Michael cared about his kids being smart and interested in learning. Paris remembers her dad being strict about ensuring she did well in school. She says he had a tough approach to balancing school and playtime. He wanted her to do her best in both. He even devised a clever way to get her to read more by linking it to getting toys. This story shows how much Michael wanted his kids to know. That learning was valuable and something they should always do. Paris, homeschooling, and tattoos. Before Michael Jackson passed away unexpectedly, his children had to balance school with traveling. They didn't just learn in regular classrooms, but also went on trips within the country and overseas. Paris Jackson had a different upbringing compared to most kids. She told Harper's Bazaar that she was homeschooled for the first 12 years of her life. This means she mainly learned from family members or other grown-ups. Being homeschooled kept Paris and her siblings away from the public, giving them a more private childhood. Paris Jackson and her siblings used to cover their faces with veils or masks when they went out in public, according to writer Candace Bushnell. Paris explained why they did this in an interview in 2013. She said her father, Michael Jackson, didn't want people to recognize them. He wanted them to have a normal childhood, something he didn't have. Paris Jackson believes her dad, Michael Jackson, shaped her strong morals and ethics. In a talk with Willow Smith on Red Table Talk, Paris talked about how her dad's teachings still affect her life. She shared that someone asked her about continuing her father's legacy. This made her think about the good things she learned from him. She says she uses these good morals every day. She talks about values like being humble, kind, and tolerant, even when things are tough. It gets better. Paris thinks it's important to be kind, not only to people who are nice to you, but also to those who may have hurt you. She also thinks it's important to be kind to yourself. Paris grew up learning these values from her dad, and she still believes in them as an adult. She's following her dreams to be a musician and work in entertainment. Even though her dad was famous, she wanted to make her own success. She says she wants to earn everything she gets. Paris Jackson values honesty and being true to herself. She learned these things from her dad and kept them close to her heart. She's determined to make her own way in life, even with her dad's legacy. She believes in working hard and earning her success. Paris Jackson's sense of self comes from her dad, Michael Jackson, who taught her to embrace her black roots. Even though they had different skin colors, Michael ensured Paris knew and valued their shared heritage. In a 2017 interview with Rolling Stone, Paris talked about how her dad's lessons shaped her. She said she sees herself as black. Paris remembered times when Michael encouraged her to take pride in being black, showing she trusted her dad's words. Paris Jackson had a hard time accepting how she looked because her dad, Michael Jackson, had a skin problem called vitiligo. She talked about this in an interview with Rolling Stone. Paris knows some folks think she doesn't look like her black roots. She said many who don't know her think she's white, but not everyone agrees with what Paris said. Wendy Williams, after reading an article about Paris, didn't like what she said, especially about her light skin. In response, Paris wondered why her family was always on Wendy's mind. Do you agree with Wendy? Paris Jackson expressed her deep connection to her father, Michael Jackson, by getting meaningful tattoos. In a 2017 interview with Rolling Stone, she shared that she has over 80 tattoos, with 9 dedicated to her father. These tattoos symbolize their bond and serve as a lasting tribute to him. Despite the passing years, Paris still grieves the loss of her father. To find comfort and honor his memory, she decided to ink these symbols onto her skin permanently. During the interview, Paris said Michael always made her happy, so she wanted tattoos that reminded her of joy. One tattoo on her collarbone says faith, trust, and pixie dust, like Peter Pan, a character Michael liked, and Paris's nickname, Tinkerbell. Another tattoo has words from Michael's letter, saying she's the queen of my heart. These tattoos show how much Michael loved Paris and how she remembers him. Paris Jackson's piercings have meaning beyond just being body decorations. An article in LVR magazine explained that the number of piercings she has is significant to her and her dad. Paris said the importance is in the total number, not each piercing itself. She hinted at some symbols like a sunburst, feather, and dragon, which all tell stories about her bond with Michael. Isn't that extremely cute? Paris Jackson's approach to work is as a result of her famous father's influence. Michael Jackson was known for his strong work ethic and dedication to music. Paris has inherited this trait and applies it to her own endeavors. Seeing her father's relentless pursuit of excellence has had a lasting impact on her. As an adult, she tackles her music projects with the same level of dedication and commitment that she admired in her father. When things get tough, Paris relies on music to help her feel better. It helps her focus and puts her energy into her creative projects. This was especially true in 2019 when Paris had a tough time and needed medical help. With everyone watching her closely in the media, she found comfort in her music. Making music became her way of dealing with things and making herself feel better. For Paris, music isn't just a job. It's a way to deal with life and find healing through art. Challenges of being his daughter. Growing up as Michael Jackson's daughter was tough. Being always watched by the public caused Paris a lot of stress. She struggled with anxiety, hearing things that weren't there, and feeling extremely paranoid because of the paparazzi. But to keep them safe, Michael made his kids wear masks when they went out. Paris appreciates her dad trying to shield them from the media, but being in the spotlight so much made her very sensitive to noise. This makes her panic sometimes, like she's experiencing PTSD. Paris talked about how she and her dad had deep talks about the tough times he faced when he was alive. Michael wanted his kids to grow up differently, to have a normal life, unlike his own unusual childhood. He wanted them to do regular stuff like going to Chuck E. Cheese and Toys R Us and enjoying simple things like watching movies and eating junk food together. Paris remembered a time when she didn't even know her dad was famous worldwide. She just thought of him as her dad. Oh, we're not done yet. Check this out. Jackson grew up in a big theme park called Neverland, which was 2,700 acres. Even though you might think life was carefree, being Michael Jackson's daughter meant following some strict rules. Paris, Michael's daughter, said in a Rolling Stone interview that they couldn't just go on rides whenever they wanted. They had to go to school every day and behave well to earn the chance to do fun things on weekends, like going to the movies or spending time with the animals. If they didn't obey the rules, they'd lose these privileges. But Paris still looks back fondly on her time at Neverland. Years after Michael died, she visited and told Event magazine she cried because of how beautiful it was there. This visit showed how much Neverland meant to her. As of 2022, Neverland was being renovated by a businessman named Ron Burkle, but its importance in Paris's life shows how unique her childhood was. Paris discovered a different side of her famous father, Michael Jackson, away from the bright lights of the stage. While fans know him for his dazzling performances, at home he showed his talent as a cook. Away from the noise of the crowds and cameras, Michael delighted in creating delicious dishes for his daughter. This side of him allowed Paris to connect with her father personally. In their kitchen, away from the public eye, they bonded over a shared love for cooking. Despite having a personal chef named Niall, Michael's cooking skills were impressive. Cooking together became a special time for them, where they shared heartfelt conversations. Paris cherishes memories of her father's amazing fried chicken, which he proudly claimed was the best in the world. These cooking sessions weren't just about food, they were opportunities for Michael to pass on skills and wisdom to his daughter, making their kitchen a place of personal and family connection. Paris and Michael bonded in culinary arts too. Paris recalls how her dad was amazing at making delicious French toast. She even told Oprah about it in 2010. These cooking sessions showed a different, caring side of Michael Jackson. Paris has been working hard to honor her dad's memory since he passed away. She's found meaningful ways to remember him, like celebrating his 60th birthday in 2018. At that event, Paris and her brother Prince accepted a humanitarian award on behalf of their dad from the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation. This showed their commitment to continuing Michael Jackson's legacy of kindness and helping others. As Paris Jackson grows up, she learns more about how much her dad, Michael Jackson, influenced the world. To keep his memory alive, Paris and her brother Prince appeared together in February 2022. They supported the Broadway show MJ the Musical, which praised Michael Jackson's amazing career. This was a special moment for Paris and Prince to stand together and honor their father's legacy. They wanted to show their pride in Michael Jackson's accomplishments and how much he meant to them. Paris and Prince walked down the red carpet together, talking to reporters and taking pictures. This proves how much their dad, Michael Jackson, still matters in the music world. The show, MJ the Musical, happened at the Neil Simon Theater in New York City. It was a special way to remember Michael's huge impact on music. Paris and Prince didn't just watch the show, they were part of it, honoring their dad's music legacy. It's something always worth remembering. Prince took to Instagram to express his thanks for the chance to honor his dad and family's heritage. He praised the team behind MJ the Musical for their hard work and passion, saying they've done a great job keeping Michael Jackson's music alive and spreading his powerful message. Meanwhile, in a chat on No Filter with Naomi, Paris opened up about her constant support from her dad, Michael Jackson, as she pursued her dreams. Despite his efforts to keep her away from showbiz, he always encouraged her to follow her passions. Paris also looked back on how her childhood shaped who she is now, noting how everything from her unique experiences to the music her dad introduced her to has influenced her. Now, this was something we knew all along. Paris Jackson has confirmed how her dad greatly influenced her taste in music. It's quite obvious, even in how she sings. She mentioned how Michael liked all kinds of music, like classical, jazz, hip-hop, R&B, Motown classics, and even the songs on the radio. His love for different genres, including rock and soft rock, and his special fondness for the Beatles, showed how much he enjoyed music from all over. Paris also shared how her dad's music has influenced her career. She's made her own way in the music world, doing solo music projects. She's been sharing her music journey with her fans on Instagram. After being part of the group The Soundflowers, Paris made a big step in her music career by releasing her first solo album, Wilted, in 2020. During a chat on Good Morning America, Paris talked about how much her dad, Michael Jackson, meant to her while she was growing up. She said he was always there for her, giving her lots of support and inspiration. Paris explained how his encouragement wasn't just about one thing, but it covered everything in her life. As she stepped into the music world, she knew people would see her as Michael Jackson's daughter, and that brought its own set of challenges. But she remembered her dad's words pushing her to follow her dreams, whether she wanted to be an astronaut or try different things in life. Paris shared her dad's mantra, which was to do it and do it well. She felt lucky to have a dad who wanted her to chase after happiness and be excellent in whatever she chose to do. Paris Jackson's struggles with mental health and public scrutiny. Growing up in the shadow of greatness is no easy task. For Paris Jackson, being the daughter of the King of Pop meant that the world had eyes on her before she even knew who she was. Born into fame and attention, she never really had a chance to live a normal life, whatever that might mean. Cameras followed her, headlines speculated about her every move, and complete strangers felt entitled to comment on her choices, her looks, and even her emotions. From an early age, Paris struggled to find her footing. After the sudden death of her father, Michael Jackson, when she was just 11 years old, her world was turned completely upside down. The grief was overwhelming, and the loss was so deeply personal, yet it played out in front of millions of people. She wasn't just a young girl mourning her father. She was Michael Jackson's daughter, and that made her pain public. Every tear, every moment of confusion, every attempt to cope, it was all scrutinized, analyzed, and too often judged. Paris has been remarkably honest about her mental health journey. In interviews, she has opened up about her experiences with depression, anxiety, self-harm, and even suicide attempts.
Paris tells Rolling Stone she tried to commit suicide at 15 years old and reveals the highly publicized incident was just one of multiple attempts.
She's talked about feeling completely alone in the world, despite being surrounded by people. That crushing sense of isolation is something many who struggle with mental health can relate to, but for Paris, it was intensified by the media circus that surrounded her life. "I was going through a lot, thinking that I didn't belong anywhere," she shared in a deeply emotional conversation. Her words resonate with anyone who has ever felt like an outsider, like they were silently screaming in a crowded room. There were years where Paris checked into treatment facilities and stepped away from the public eye altogether. It was during these quieter periods that she focused on healing. She began therapy, explored different methods of self-care, and surrounded herself with people who truly cared about her. Not just the persona the world saw, but the real Paris. Through it all, she continued to speak out, hoping that her honesty could help others feel seen. Her bravery in sharing these dark chapters of her life has sparked important conversations around mental health, particularly among young people in the entertainment industry who face similar pressures. In a world where vulnerability is often mistaken for weakness, Paris chose to be raw and real. She's shown that there is strength in admitting when you're hurting, and even more in asking for help. "I still struggle," she admitted, "but I'm learning to live with it. I'm learning that healing is not linear." Paris's courage has inspired countless fans, many of whom credit her openness with giving them the strength to seek help for their own emotional battles. She doesn't pretend to have it all figured out, and that honesty makes her all the more relatable. In an industry full of masks and illusions, she stands out by being herself. Finding her identity. Beyond the Jackson legacy. One of the biggest challenges Paris has faced is finding her own identity apart from her famous last name. Growing up, people expected her to be a certain way, to follow in her father's footsteps, to sing like him, dance like him, be him.
Did you tell your dad you wanted to act?
Yeah, and we did improvs together, and he would give us little scenarios, and he's like, "Okay, so in this scene you're gonna cry," and I'd cry on the spot.
But Paris quickly realized that her journey would be different. While she inherited her father's creative soul and deep sense of compassion, Paris has carved out her own space in the world. She's a talented singer-songwriter, actress, and model. But more importantly, she's someone who uses her voice for something greater. Whether she's walking a red carpet or speaking at an event, Paris is always striving to be authentic. Her music, particularly her debut album, Wilted, is a reflection of her soul, raw, emotional, and hauntingly beautiful. She's said that creating music is therapeutic for her, a way to process all the emotions she's carried over the years. The album explores themes of love, loss, and healing, and it's deeply personal. "I think art is one of the most powerful tools for healing," Paris once said. "It lets you turn pain into something beautiful." Even though comparisons to her father are inevitable, Paris doesn't try to compete with his legacy. Instead, she honors it in her own way, by staying true to herself and using the platform he helped create to shed light on issues that matter to her. Paris Jackson's passion for activism and environmentalism. Beyond the headlines and music charts, Paris Jackson is also a passionate advocate for change. She's not just someone who posts about causes when it's convenient, she's someone who lives her values. Whether it's fighting for animal rights, marching for women's equality, or speaking out against climate change, Paris is always looking for ways to make the world a better place. In 2017, she made headlines for attending the Women's March in Los Angeles, joining thousands of others in a call for justice and equality. But activism for Paris isn't just about showing up, it's about staying involved. She uses her social media platforms to educate her followers, highlight underreported issues, and encourage people to take action. One of the causes closest to her heart is environmental conservation. Paris is a passionate supporter of sustainability and wildlife protection. She's spoken out against deforestation, plastic pollution, and the mistreatment of animals. She's also supported initiatives aimed at preserving endangered species and protecting natural habitats. Her love for animals is especially deep-rooted. Paris has often talked about the healing power of her pets and how they helped her through some of her darkest moments. She once said, "Animals don't judge. They just love you. And sometimes, that's exactly what you need." Paris believes that activism isn't about being perfect. It's about caring enough to try. She understands that no one can do everything, but everyone can do something. And she leads by example, using her fame not to seek attention, but to shine a light on things that really matter. Following in Michael Jackson's footsteps, in her own way. It's impossible to talk about Paris without acknowledging the impact of her father.
Which is the Church for Jehovah's Witnesses, but my dad, he used to always emphasize knowledge is power. And so I just always wanted to learn new things.
Michael Jackson wasn't just a global superstar. He was also a humanitarian who believed in healing the world. Through his music, his charitable work, and his compassion, he tried to make the planet a better place. Paris has taken those same values to heart. She often says that her father taught her the importance of kindness, empathy, and giving back. Even as a child, she remembers him stressing the value of helping others and speaking up for those who can't speak for themselves. The lessons he left her didn't fade with time. They grew stronger. In many ways, Paris is continuing her father's legacy, not by copying his path, but by walking her own. She's chosen a different kind of spotlight, one that focuses on truth, authenticity, and purpose. Paris has also worked with organizations that carry on Michael's philanthropic vision, such as the Heal the World Foundation. She's spoken about how proud she is of the work he did, and how she wants to honor his memory through her own actions. "I want to do good in the world," she said, "not just because of who my dad was, but because of who I want to be." A beacon of resilience and hope. Today, Paris Jackson stands as a true symbol of resilience and courage. Her life has been anything but easy, marked by personal tragedies, intense public scrutiny, and the constant weight of being Michael Jackson's daughter. From a very young age, she was thrust into a world where privacy was scarce. Expectations were sky-high, and critics never held back. Yet, through it all, Paris has continued to move forward. She's still here, still standing, still creating, evolving, and discovering who she is beyond the legacy she was born into. What makes Paris so compelling isn't just her talent or famous last name, it's her honesty. She doesn't try to hide the messiness of life or pretend to have it all figured out. Instead, she openly shares her battles with mental health, grief, and identity, allowing others to see the raw, unfiltered version of her. That vulnerability is powerful. It shows that healing isn't a straight line, and that it's okay to not be okay sometimes. In a world where so many people feel pressure to present a perfect image, Paris chooses authenticity. She wears her scars like badges of honor, knowing that they represent survival, growth, and strength. Through her music, activism, and quiet moments of self-reflection, she's building a legacy that's entirely her own, one rooted in compassion, creativity, and truth. Paris Jackson is a reminder that being human means embracing both the light and the dark, and that rising after the fall is the truest form of strength. As she creates a name for herself, Paris hopes to be a great example of hard work, resilience, and musical inspiration like her father. Are you a fan of her music? And which of Paris's songs reminds you of her dad the most? We would love to know in the comments.